Hey, what's going on, everybody? It is Aaron Trevino here, and we have, for the second time, an awesome guest. We have Lyndon Morgan from San Antonio. How you doing, Lyndon?
Pretty good, man. Definitely appreciate you having me on again. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing well. It's pretty cool having you on the show. I know we had a conversation, way back 6 months ago about today, and it's finally here.
Yeah, and I know it is, right? Long time coming, but we have finally made it to the destination of this talk.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. No, I was thrilled to have you on last time. You really dropped a lot of knowledge about it, about you, what you do, multifamily, because you're kind of a hybrid. You have your hands on so many different things.
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah, definitely touching a lot of different things right now, especially with the way the market is. I feel like there's a lot of opportunity out there. So, try to narrow my focus while also putting my hand in as many baskets as I can that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Okay, so for those of us who aren't familiar with you, Lyndon, could you introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So everybody, just so you know, my name is Lyndon Morgan. Pretty much I have do a little bit of everything, jack of all trades. So honestly, I'm just a really analytical person. So I've always kind of had this love for business since a really young age. And that just kind of, I guess, blossomed into a love for real estate, cryptocurrency, economics in general. And that's both, national and international. Just kind of seeing how all of these different things work together, politics, how it all influences each other, and how you can see different markets, whether we're talking crypto markets, whether we're talking in, the stock market, bond market, mutual funds, whatever the case. I'm just like fascinated with it. So yeah, I just like to try to get as much information and put the picture together as much as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting because, like you said, a lot of those things are all kind of related, right?
Definitely. Without a doubt. Yeah, it's pretty interesting the correlations you will or will not see when certain things happen, right? And there's a lot of different things that can trigger a market to go up or down one way or another. And again, it doesn't matter whether we're talking, crypto, stocks, whether we're talking options, whatever the case, forex, whatever the case. So it's pretty interesting to just see how different things happen and how they influence markets in different ways, and to try to basically just take that information and use it to your advantage. So
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, what sort of things would, potentially influence the market? And, when you say influence, what does that mean?
right. So things that can influence the market, right? You have your technicals, right? All of the analytical data that you may use, and then you have your fundamentals, right? All of the emotional driven data that you can use basically to observe a market. And I mean, literally anything more or less can trigger a market to go up and down. And it's really interesting because while there are definitely patterns that you can recognize and identify, right? Nothing is true forever. So it's interesting how one set of the same information can cause two different reactions, as far as whether a market moves up and down, and just people's mindsets throughout that too as well, and just seeing kind of how things happen. So again, right, when you look at all of this from a full circle perspective, you try to put all of these things together, right? Because naturally, right, everything is separate. So crypto, politics, real estate, the stock market, all of that stuff is separate, right? But all of it in some way, shape, or form influences each other as well. So, obviously, like one of the biggest things, obviously, the presidential election, right? Seeing how that has influenced all these different markets, people's reactions, things like that, right? And of course, you have your number crunchers. You go on, you look at your charts, you analyze data over the last, 10, 20 years, however much information you have, right? And of course, you can easily come to a conclusion this way, right? But that one bit of news could throw all of that out of whack, right? And just make it, completely throw whatever trajectory that you had in your mind there, right? And kind of how all markets is, right? Hindsight is 2020. So when you go back and you reevaluate this data, you can always make sense of something, what I'm saying, more often than not. But in the moment, it's very different when you're trying to pinpoint or trying to figure out a direction where something is going in the moment. And again, it's one of those things that, it takes a lot of time, a lot of practice. And again, even then, anybody will tell you nobody's right 100% of the time, right? So it's just a matter of just, okay, where is the data pointing me at this moment, while also understanding that any point in time that could be invalidated and pretty much go the other direction. So
It's interesting where, that can, you can draw a lot of parallels, between any industry, whether it's crypto or real estate or, or stocks or whatever it may be, following that data and kind of seeing where it would take you.
Yeah, it definitely is the case, man. And it's funny because it's almost like, right? It's like the data will try to draw you a map, but the map is ridiculously complicated, and it's interesting, right? Because you have a lot of people who will specialize in these individual sectors, right? And I feel like very rarely do I see a lot of these, or at least publicly, let me say that, do I see all of these people come together and try to draw one conclusion from all of that. Now, again, you have people who definitely try to pick in all of those pots, right? But you know what they say, jack of all trades, master of none, right? So again, imagine if you had all those masterminds sitting in one room, all really conversing and talking about, okay, where do we really see the direction of things going, and trying not to leave anything out as much as possible. That's really what I want to see. That's what I hope to see. That's what I hope to honestly facilitate one day.
Yeah. So can you, I guess, kind of leaning into that a bit, what do you mean by, facilitating what specifically, in what capacity?
Yeah, so I mean, really, right? It's kind of like almost like a meeting of the minds, right? So kind of like a mastermind or something of some sort, right? But really getting experts in their fields, whether people who just have immense amounts of experience. Say we take blockchain, right? We take a technical analyst when it comes to cryptocurrency, right? Then we take somebody who specializes in the stock market, all right? Somebody who specializes in the real estate market, right? And then we put all of these people who just naturally, because of their love for their sector, that's all they focus on, right? So they live in their world, putting all of those people solidly in one room and really having discussion and seeing where perspectives intercept and where, right, things could possibly go, right? Because when you're talking about something one dimensionally, right, and especially if you're sitting in a room with all of the people that have a similar mindset, generally, more or less, you're going to know where the conversation is going to go. It's going to steer in the same direction. But as soon as you put different people all in that room that, again, right, have all of these different versions of essentially what is probably close to the same thing, that's when you can really start to see the interweaving between all of these different industries and a more, I feel, encompassing and realistic perspective on where the bigger picture is and where we can really see growth taking place. And I think now, even more than probably almost any other time in history, that could be something that could be monumental, because we are currently witnessing a complete, I feel like, transformation of both potentially our monetary system and the technology world at the same time. So there's a lot of different stuff happening. So you imagine, right, on the cusp of what I hope to believe is a really great transformation, all of these people coming together and really hypothesizing on where they believe this is going. Would be crazy to see all of those people. I would love to be a fly on the wall in that room. Let me tell you that.
Yeah, that's right. So for you, in an ideal scenario, you have those bright minds. They're all in the same boardroom together. They're bouncing ideas off each other. What's the future? What can be done?
I feel like with that, if we really had that type of a setup, I mean, the sky's the limit, really, right? Because it's all about the present, knowing where you are in the moment, right? And again, like I said, nothing is one dimensional, right? There's a lot of different aspects to anything that you do. So again, if you have a group of people or even a person, right, that's open-minded enough to say, hey, I specialize in this, but I'm willing to take on all this additional information that I know is also important outside of my specialty, it creates, I feel like, this complete opportunity to help gain perspective and to do things in a more comprehensive way without, accidentally leaving something out or leaving something, leaving something, just kind of out there that you wouldn't have even thought before without having a conversation with that person that's in that field, right? Because you don't know what you don't know. So, that want to, take in that information is really important. But I feel like that could just really help facilitate, and I feel like push us in the right direction more intentionally rather than accidentally. And again, right, you have a lot of people out here in their individual sectors doing really great things, but I feel like when you move as a unit, it's a totally different feeling, and you can really build that momentum in a way that you really couldn't do individually. So
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if this is a fair parallel to draw, but it almost kind of reminds me of, kind of beginner's luck, right? So you have, person A, they're very experienced, whereas person B, they're just coming into the industry, they're coming into the company with fresh eyes, and they're
yep.
asking all these questions that person A generally wouldn't think of. But, when they're kind of jogging their memory, maybe it makes them question, okay, well, as an organization, why are we doing this?
Yep, that is 100% correct. And that's the thing I love. And it's funny, I love talking to new people to anything that I've been exposed to. Cause like you said, right, once you've been in something for a while, your mind just kind of goes in this one direction and it just stays on its path in this nice, smooth rhythm. And after a while, very suddenly do you get off of that path. And me, in my mind, it doesn't matter what I'm focused on, real estate, crypto, stock market, whatever. I always try to tell myself, stay open to new knowledge, new perspectives, even if you've been in that same sector your whole life, because all it takes is one phrase to completely change your perspective and make you see something that you didn't see before, even if you've been in it 20 years. So, it's just a part of staying humble. So, no, it is. It's amazing when you have those new fresh perspectives now. And imagine, right? You're having a new perspective from a subject matter expert in another area. It's
Right.
at that point it becomes a whole different thing. And then imagine you have, again, all of these different people sitting in a room with that same perspective. So to each individual person, if there's 5 people, you have 4 new perspectives coming from whatever your expertise is, right? And it's like that for every person in the room. So I feel like it would open dialogue that is just, it's almost priceless.
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of laugh because it reminds me of me and one of my good friends growing up. And
Mm-hmm.
he's the finance guy, he's the numbers guy, he likes the market just like yourself. And he was telling me years ago, he's like, man, crypto is the future. And to me, I just at that time I knew nothing about it. I just kind of figured, well, if I can't touch it, then it's not money, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So, for those of us who aren't, too familiar with it, could you kind of explain what crypto is?
Yeah, absolutely. So, pretty much cryptocurrency is the monetary application of blockchain technology. And that's really what it is. And like you said, right, people have become so used to the physical aspect of money, even when now technically it's really not physical. Debit cards, credit cards, bank accounts. When you want to transfer between your bank account, you don't touch anything physical except your phone. Other than that, you're just hitting numbers and you hit an enter button, right? So it's so funny how still people have been kind of ingrained with this physicality that comes along with money, when in reality it's really not. Most of the currency in existence right now, most of it's not paper currency. I can't remember the exact percentage, but we're definitely more digital now than ever. So to me, cryptocurrency was just kind of like the next step, the next evolution in money in that way. So yeah, cryptocurrency is amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned something interesting there. It's kind of I guess, a manifestation of the blockchain. What is blockchain?
Yeah, so blockchain is awesome. Blockchain is that awesome basically cryptic technology that pretty much allows for a trustless system to come into place, right? And what I mean by that is generally now how we deal with money is that we have to trust a third party, that generally being the bank, or if it's not a bank, it's whatever app or whatever, system we're using to send that money back and forth. So blockchain in and of itself becomes that system. And because essentially it is just numbers and code and math, right? The formulas are what drive. You don't have to necessarily trust it in and of itself or the person on the other end of that transaction, because basically the math and the algorithms that basically create it is the one that does all the heavy lifting. So essentially, it just kind of in a sense, I guess more or less kind of like, okay, well, why are we using banks again? Why is it taking, 10 days to get a transfer, or, whatever the case? Why is it costing, $25 to transfer money when you could essentially almost do the same thing with cryptocurrency for, a super fraction of the cost, couple cents? So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But you mentioned another interesting word. You mentioned the word algorithm, right?
Yes.
So an algorithm is written, I'm assuming, by a person, a group of people, meaning that there is an owner. So someone owns the algorithm.
So yes and no, right? You can have a person that creates it, but the bigger thing behind blockchain is, right, is nobody owns it. Now, of course, right, you can definitely have centralization in a way in the blockchain and the cryptocurrency space, right? But the end goal is always to decentralize. It's to get rid of as much of that centralization as possible, because if not, I mean, what makes that any different than the banks that we operate with now? So the name of the game is to create something and then push it out to an ecosystem to where you, even if you are the creator, you're not the controller of it. So, and I believe that's what, Satoshi Nakamoto, the creator of, Bitcoin, essentially did almost flawlessly, and as far as executing and just putting it out there, so it was just like Napster back in the day. It was kind of like the first stepping stone.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough. So, kind of running back to, I guess, the founder of Bitcoin, what did he do that was special?
What he basically did was that he basically took encryption and basically combined that with the algorithm that essentially allowed for scalability and allowed for the trustless moving of transactions, right? And again, generally when we hear blockchain, we associate it with cryptocurrency, right? The monetary aspect. But there's a lot of other things that can be transferred back and forth between a blockchain. Essentially, you can do files and all data and all types of stuff. So again, right, the key word is trustless, meaning the faith is put in that algorithm, meaning obviously it's not a human being in a sense, right? So it doesn't have any loyalty to either you or I, other than itself, its own blockchain. So the name of the game is basically making sure that both ends of whatever transaction takes place are treated as fairly as possible, and that's the brilliance of it all.
Yeah, no, it is interesting how, I guess, built into the algorithm are those rules or commands or whatever it has, just to ensure that, everyone gets a fair shake.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely the case. And I mean, of course, right, it gets, and believe me, I am not a technical person. I'm not a technical person by any means when it comes to coding and things like that. But man, I have told you, I have conversations with plenty of developers. I have read plenty of white papers, technical papers. Man, it goes deep, really deep. I mean, it's pretty interesting how technically advanced it can get. And it's funny, right? Because one thing, and I've had a lot of conversations with a lot of developers. Coding blockchain versus anything else is a very different experience, and that is probably the most common thing I've heard among devs. Because just because you coded 10 years in anything else does not mean you will just come in and be successful when it comes to blockchain, because it's an entirely different beast. So it is definitely unique.
Huh. I'm just curious as well, what makes it different, maybe from a coding or just any sort of perspective?
I think it's just the general makeup of what it takes to really create and consistently keep up with blockchain technology. And again, coming from a non-technical perspective, just kind of spitting out all of the information and things I've been told over the years of talking to different people, right? It's just, it really is new. It really is new technology. It's not something, and again, it's based off of things that have been talked about and researched in the past, right? So it didn't like poof come out of exactly nowhere. Even back before in the 90s, right, this was a topic. This was something that was getting researched and was attempted to get created back then. It just obviously didn't come out into the forefront until later in time. But it's just a different beast. And you know what, and that's funny, another thing that I hear, and this is what I try to tell anybody new to crypto when researching new projects, is I'll tell them, right, if you're not a technical person, you really can't grasp what it looks like on the back end when this stuff is being created or what it takes to upkeep it. I have had enough conversations with enough devs to tell you it is much more difficult than what it seems to be. And again, that's coming from a non-technical perspective. Any technical, any developer that comes to me and it tells me blockchain is easy, I'm running the opposite direction, because I'm like, how? What? Let me tell me what you're doing. What are you coding? What project are you a part of? Because that's completely opposite to almost anything and everything I've heard when it comes to developing blockchain.
Yeah. No, I think it's interesting as well. Kind of what you mentioned about keeping up with the blockchain, right?
Yeah.
So you have an algorithm, right? And it keeps people honest. It gives
Mm-hmm.
everyone a fair shake. What is there exactly to keep up with, right?
Oh my gosh. So much stuff. So obviously, right, you have oh my God, you have a bunch of different ways or things that are affected, right? Obviously, scalability is one of those things, right? So how many transactions can a blockchain handle within a certain amount of time or a certain block? The block time changes, right? You have scalability, you have different things you can build. If you have like a layered blockchain, right, you may have different protocols that you may want to build on top of that blockchain to have different functions and uses. Depends on what type of coin you're going to have. If we're talking obviously cryptocurrency or just blockchain in general, whether it's going to be private, whether it's going to be public. I mean, so many different things. So again, it's a constant. I haven't seen any any coins or cryptocurrencies or blockchains that are just on autopilot. At least not at this point.
Yeah.
I could see more of that probably being the case if it was real basic functionality, but even then there's still going to be a constant upkeep, right? Because things change, code changes at the least, right? The word that just completely left my mind, encryption, obviously, right? Encryption is that thing that's going to it's going to change over time, right? The encryption we used 10 years ago can't be used today because it will probably 9 times out of 10 be hacked. So the encryption at the least is one of those things they're going to have to keep moving up in basically levels or and things like that. So you're going to have to continuously, if not anything else, upgrade the encryption that you're using in whatever blockchain you have created, so that you can evade hacks. You can keep blockchains from getting hacked. You can evade, AIs and supercomputers and all the other crazy stuff that could potentially be a threat.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that you brought a very interesting point up, is just kind of the security of it, right? Because like anything, it can be compromised.
Mm-hmm.
How can you kind of ensure that the blockchain is protected and that your transactions are protected?
Yeah, I mean, to me, that only goes as far as how much you know about the blockchain that's being built. That's why I tell anybody, like, it's really important, even if you're not a technical person, right? You want to have some type of knowledge and insurance in your mind to where you can try to say, like, okay, I believe this may be safe more or less rather than this, right? So doing that research, and again, you don't have to get super deep and technical with it, right? You can learn enough to figure out, certain red flags, like when a developer says, oh yeah, blockchain is easy. Like, again, anybody saying that should be a red flag. But there's definitely things that you want to look out for, and you want to have that knowledge yourself, so the conversation won't be so one-sided, and you just won't have to take that developer's word for it, right? Because at the end of the day, if this is something you're talking about investing your hard-earned money into, 9 times out of 10, if you lose it, you're probably going to be mad. And at the end of the day, that person probably isn't going to care about your money more than you do. So, again, and it's one of those things, it's a huge learning curve. If you've never traded, if you're not technology savvy, it's definitely going to be harder to catch on to things than, a person that is. But it is absolutely not something that can't be done, because I have literally witnessed myself plenty of times with plenty of people. So anybody can learn it as long as you have the desire to want to know the information. So.
Yeah, absolutely, Lyndon. I guess one thing that maybe someone who would get tripped up on is, kind of using real estate as an example, right? You
Mm-hmm.
buy a rental property, how many doors it has, how much the rent would be, how much your expenses are, your maintenance, right?
Yep.
Whereas for crypto, it almost kind of seems like it's the Wild West. It's entirely different.
It's definitely not. It's funny you say that. It's funny because back in the day, that's literally what everybody said all the time. Like, it's literally crypto was the wild, wild west. And I mean, this really still is, right? It's still fairly new. Most people don't really use this on a day-to-day basis. Most people think about it in a very speculative way. So most people are completely unaware of the intricacies when you start getting into blockchain and cryptocurrency and things like that. But again, that just comes back to, educating yourself as much as possible and trying to get as much information so you can kind of keep yourself from the crazy people, the cowboys that are out there just robbing everybody. Because believe me, they exist in crypto. And it's funny, right? Because again, you don't know what you don't know. Once you start to learn what to look for, when I tell you it's easy to spot a crypto scam, it is easy. I'm telling you, it is easy because it almost feels like everybody likes to use the same template. I'm like, man, y'all aren't getting more creative. And don't get me wrong, there's definitely some people who have got creative, but 9 times out of 10, it's the same thing. It's the random message on Telegram or Facebook. Hey, do you have any Bitcoin? Oh, I know this really great platform. You just send me $200 and I'll give you back 2,000. You're like, wait, what? Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
So, yeah, things to look out for, man. It happens.
Yeah, I've definitely gotten plenty of those strange messages, and they're not well received generally.
Yeah, yeah. No, I always play with people, man. It's hilarious, and I have a Crypto Legends book on Facebook. Plenty of people in there, and it's like I know people can see my profile and they can see I do crypto. So when I get those messages, I just laugh. I'm just like, all right, let's see where this one goes.
Yeah. No, it's funny. It's interesting because it almost kind of seems like it's almost the birth of an era. We're on the cusp of something. It almost kind of reminds me of how when Henry Ford came out with the Model T, people were saying, well, what the heck is this? We don't, who's going to
Yeah,
buy this, right?
yeah,
Whereas now, everyone has cars, everyone has automobiles.
correct. Yeah, and that's I honestly felt like that back in early 2017 when I first really jumped in, and I still feel like that now, and I feel like it's even more true now because we can see the level of seriousness that cryptocurrency is really starting to garnish now. Especially, I mean, I don't care if we're talking about the CFTC, the SEC, our government, banks, like everybody is really looking at this. I mean, obviously we have, a few Bitcoin futures now, all of the other good stuff. So I said it back then, this is not something that's about to just go away. And back then, right, anything new comes with pushback. It's just natural. The internet, when it came around, people were like, who, what is this internet thing? What's this www thing? Nobody's going to use this. Yeah. So now let's imagine today without internet, people would go absolutely insane. You wouldn't be able to do anything. So I really feel like cryptocurrency is that thing. But the only difference with cryptocurrency, and blockchain as well, is that there's a certain level of sovereignty that comes with that I really feel like it can't be controlled as much as you want it to. Somebody will always have the ability to basically just go and create their own currency if they want to. And it's funny, right? Because currency, the way we see it now, right? The value comes from whoever believes it has value. So if anybody can create a currency that has value, all it takes is another person that believing whatever you created has value, and then now all of a sudden it's currency. That's what it is.
Yeah, that's kind of an interesting point as well as, I guess the power that a currency has is basically contingent upon, or it's in accordance with, the value that people give it by using it, right?
Yep.
So, the dollar is strong because people all over the world use the US dollar, right?
Yeah, correct.
People park their money here. So my question is, if, you're having to mine for Bitcoin, or you're having to look at an algorithm or look at all these technical intricacies, how can you assign a value to that?
Yeah, and I feel like, and it's funny, right? Because that comes from two different perspectives at one time. It comes from your individual perspective as you're doing the research, right? You can see something sitting at a certain price, and based on the research you do, you're going to say to yourself, do I feel like this value is adequate? Does this actually make sense, right? But then you're also, that number that you're looking at on the screen, that is what the ecosystem is telling you they believe the value is at that particular moment in time, right? And again, this market is no different than any other market. There's manipulation, there's bad things that happen. it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, that number is that number for a particular reason. So that's the value that's there. So you just have to ask yourself, okay, does that value make sense to me to where I want to risk whatever I have to invest in it or to just use it? So, and now, again, that's the beautiful thing about it, right? Because people don't think about that when they think about the dollar. It's like, I don't have a choice. I got to use this. Like, if I don't, I won't have food. I can't pay my bills. I can't do all of that. So, but now you got cryptocurrency to where it's really ushering in this idea of like, yo, like, I may really have an option to be able to pick how I want to spend my money and if it makes sense to me. And it's very different because it wasn't like that before. Like, I mean, even me, like I was funding a brokerage account a little while ago, right? Before cryptocurrency, I pretty much didn't have an option other than going to the bank, wiring my money, going to the bank, ACHing my money, Western Unioning my money. That was it. And all of those fees can be pretty hefty versus I literally just funded my, brokerage account with crypto, and a transaction that literally was going to cost me about $200 costing me about $20. I'm like, I'm sorry, you can't beat that.
Yeah, I guess no, I get that. It kind of seems like it's hard for people to conceptualize that, to kind of see, okay, Lyndon, all this sounds fine and well, but how will this help me in my everyday life? Like, you know what I mean? What would John the plumber think about this? Someone who's working day to day.
Yeah, no, I definitely get you. And that's a really good point. And that's the part that I feel like crypto and blockchain is missing the most. It has gotten better over the years, but not as nearly, I feel like, where it needs to be. And that's what I've always thought. The first thing I realized when I really got into crypto and started doing research, I was just like, oh, like there's a real lack of connection between the people who are developing this and then the people who are using this, right? Because, and again, not a hit to any dev out there, right? The way the dev mind generally thinks, and again, this is coming from a lot of different conversations, they create it and the people will come, right? And no matter what capacity they create it, that's generally not going to really be the case, right? Because cryptocurrency, while unique and extremely monumental, there's not a lack enough of something else in order to warrant people just rushing in to use it no matter what. And I feel like that creates a disconnect, right? Because you have a certain person, no matter who it is, right? It can be anybody from any walk of life with any title. If they understand the difference in or the how to basically take something that can be extremely complicated on the surface and make it simple, that's the connector. Because, like, perfect example, email behind the scenes is absolutely nuts the way it actually works, right? But we don't endure that as the everyday user. We type the message, hit send, boom, that's it, it's gone. We don't necessarily know hardly any of the things that's happening behind the scenes. I feel like crypto needs to get to that level. Blockchain needs to get to that level in order for a massive amount of people to adopt it and to really feel comfortable with it. Because let's be honest, everybody's not about to become a developer to use cryptocurrency. It's not. I wouldn't even want to do that because I've gone down that road and I've been the one that says like, oh, I don't mind. I'll do whatever I need to do in order to take advantage of this. So I get to the point where I'm almost like talking to the developer every day just to figure out how to use this wallet. But, again, not everybody has that same desire, right? They just want to be able to, hit a couple of buttons, send money, send files, do whatever they need to do, and then go on about their business and live their everyday life. So that is a really important bridge that we need to see gapped. And I'm really hoping that as we go further into the future, we'll see things develop that it's almost like the blockchain part of it is almost like an afterthought. Like, oh, this is blockchain? Oh, this is using cryptocurrency? Like, I didn't even know it. And again, right, some people feel a way about that. Like, well, if they don't know they're using it, then what's the point? The point is that technology is being utilized, right? You can't always convince everybody that they have to see it, for what it is in entirety. Some people just don't feel that way about it. But at the end of the day, to me, if you can get everybody using something that they thought they never would use and they don't even know they're using it, then it's the same level of success.
Yeah, absolutely. It almost kind of, I don't know if you've heard or grown, kind of seen people growing up like this, but it's not uncommon for parents to say, hey, no talking about money at the dinner table, right? So,
Yeah.
we're kind of conditioned to believe that money is this very foreign thing. And then you're adding this new element of, oh, okay, well, there's, another form of money that we can use now aside from dollars.
Yep. So it does. It opens. It definitely challenges the current state of mind and how people believe money works and how people believe technology works simultaneously. And it's like the craziest thing to get into a discussion about. Like, it is by far the funnest thing ever to have a conversation about cryptocurrency or blockchain with somebody who does not like it. To me, it's because it's always interesting to see what their perspective is and the things they say them to really make them believe like, okay, this doesn't make any kind of sense,
Yeah.
and those to me, those are the things, those people, if you can get them to realize the value without getting them to realize the value, that's a win. And again, that's only going to come from, again, creating things, making things simpler on the surface. So where it's not I don't have to learn how to code to send money to someone I love that's across on the other side of the earth,
Yeah, absolutely. I guess it's kind of, at least it kind of seems like for people, it's hard to quantify or to kind of give it a value, right? So,
Yeah.
you have $1, maybe you have a country like maybe Costa Rica, they'll peg their currency to the US dollar, right? One for
Yeah.
one. Or, I don't know, whatever other country they'll say, oh, well, our currency is 26 to $1.
Right.
Where for crypto, it's different.
It's definitely different. Yeah, it's definitely different. You have of course you have your fiat currencies, right? And they're used as a base media of exchange for that cryptocurrency, but you also have, right, your cryptocurrencies that are paired to your other cryptocurrencies. So it's a little different. And again, it's all based on, right, it's a lot of things you look at, right? So you look at obviously the market as it trades, and you see different values, right? When you go on CoinGecko or you go on coinmarketcap.com, and you can see the running values of whatever cryptocurrency you're looking at. So again, it's kind of up to the person to discern if that makes sense to them or not. And that's why I tell people, don't. And I get it, right? Because it really is kind of a conundrum when you think about it. Because imagine, right, if you could take Apple stock and go buy a burger with it. People are like, what? Like, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean you're going to give me this stock and pay for this stuff, right? And that's almost kind of what cryptocurrency is. It's like taking an asset and money, a tradable asset and money, and combining them together, which obviously, I mean, you're looking at a brand new market. And on that, a highly speculative market, again, based on what most people say, yeah, you're going to see crazy price volatility. So it makes none of that make sense, right? You're thinking like, okay, why would I want to use something as currency if it could be up or down 20 or 30% tomorrow? Like, that kind of makes me a little uneasy if I got to pay bills with that. So, I mean, believe me, I definitely understand people's perspective on why certain things make sense. But again, it's just more so, that's when you may come in and you're like, oh, wait, stable coins exist. Oh, what are stable coins? Oh, the price doesn't really fluctuate much. Oh, let me look at this then. Does this make sense? And, it kind of, starts the rabbit hole of really seeing everything that's out there. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I guess that, from the beginning of our convo, you would kind of mention how a lot of what you do, they kind of interplay with each other, right? So
Mm-hmm.
the stocks with the real estate, with what's going on in the world, what's going, whatever, the crypto, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I'm just curious, you're a real estate guy, what does crypto mean for the real estate market?
So I think, so it's funny, right? Because I really think about that from two different aspects: blockchain and crypto for the real estate market. Now, crypto for the real estate market, obviously, I feel like that there's opportunities there, obviously, because you're doing these extremely large transactions. And again, you're doing these large transactions and you're entrusting whatever company you're using to execute that monetary exchange, right? Which, again, not that that's a problem in and of itself, but when you have a system that is set up to where whatever you're doing is going to be time stepped in public, to where you can't just go and manipulate numbers with an accountant or click a couple numbers on a spreadsheet. It holds a much different weight. And it really creates this sense of maybe I shouldn't do something bad because the whole world will probably be able to see it. So it creates a different level of accountability. And again, it creates that trustless system. So that's important. But then from the blockchain perspective, look, anybody that's in real estate knows that certain things, when you do them, it feels like it's like molasses sliding down a tree. It takes forever, whether you're talking about trying to pull a title or, it seems like everything takes at least a week. So blockchain technology, I feel like through that trustless system, right, it can create a system to where these activities that would then take a couple of days to a couple of weeks could take literally a couple minutes. And imagine how much time you would save in real estate if you could execute these transactions within a couple minutes, because all of this data is sitting safely on the blockchain, so it doesn't have to be necessarily monitored or all held by this one physical person or this entity, or that is controlled by physical people that has to approve you getting that bit of information. It completely changes the game because now you're able to execute the same activity in a much faster manner. So, and what you could see happen from that could completely change real estate and how we see it today altogether. So huge.
Yeah, absolutely. It kind of seems like, I don't know about more antiquated, but it kind of seems like in terms of the technological aspect, real estate is a little bit behind other industries.
For sure. Real estate is absolutely the industry that still uses MS-DOS. I'm like, what are we, what are we doing? Why is it, like one of the things that, that kind of blows my mind is just like how difficult it can be to get all the information for a single transaction. Like, obviously there's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of people involved, but it's like, there's no, like, I feel like one unison way to do that. And while sometimes it can not be that difficult, right? And it could be a simple thing. Sometimes it could definitely not be. There could be a lack of information, misinformation, all types of stuff. So I feel like blockchain is more of a way to organize and to keep track of that while also speeding up the process, right? Because you don't have to compromise quality for the quantity of being able to move faster.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, aside from the kind of the speed and keeping people honest and the convenience, how do you think crypto will change the face of real estate?
Definitely. So with that, aside from that, I think it would just create a new experience within the real estate market that honestly is just something cool. I mean, you imagine being like, yo, I just bought a $250,000 house with crypto. Like, just saying that within itself sounds insane, because the person, I'm like, wait, what? How did you, you could do that? That's a thing? Like,
Yeah.
you bought it with crypto? How is that different than when I go buy it with regular money, and it kind of poses this question. And again, it's just because the industry is so new, right? So it almost creates kind of this shock value in a way that people just don't expect. So, and I mean, again, this is stuff that's already happened. Right? There's already been plenty of people that have bought houses that cost way more than 250,000 in crypto. So again, it's one of those things that it kind of puts things in perspective and it gives people a real idea of how this can be applied in real life. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, I'm just curious because at least with the real estate transaction, there's, as you know, there's a lot of moving pieces, a lot of moving parts. So, I mean, even if you're going through a normal bank, a private bank, or whatever it may be, your title company is going to need to, work with crypto. You're going to need to have a lot of other folks working with crypto too.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Eventually, it's going to be, everybody kind of just on the same page one way or another. And like I said, I feel like stuff like that, especially the real estate industry, I really feel like when it gets to the point to where those things could happen without necessarily you knowing that they are happening, that's when we'll see the biggest change, because a person doesn't necessarily want to feel like their whole process is being completely uprooted and changed just necessarily to make things more efficient, right? Because I feel like, especially these days, people prefer that comfort over the efficiency. So it's just like, you could do something that takes 3 hours to do, and you could tell somebody that, hey, I have this whole new way of you doing it. It'll only take 5 minutes. And that person may be like, nah, because I don't want to learn nothing new. They just want to do it the same way. And you're just like, what? I just told you I could save you more than 90% of your time. What are you talking about? So some
Yeah.
people just are just comfortable in what they have. So I feel like if we can take what we have now and mimic that as closely as possible while still making the process more efficient, I feel like those are going to be the industries that have the quickest eye opener moments to where it's like, oh, and they'll embrace crypto and blockchain technology in a way, you know?
Yeah, it just kind of seems like, at least for now, we're in that transition period.
Oh yeah, I tell people all the time. It's funny. They look at the price of Bitcoin and they're like, "Oh man, it's like 35,000. We missed the boat." Nah, not at all. Not even close. I don't think to missing the boat, right? Because, and that's the beautiful part, right? When you don't look at it from just a technological perspective, and you look at it also from a monetary perspective, and how you evaluate other markets, the beginning of markets, what they look like, the growth, right? In the beginning of anything, right? Generally, especially if it's something that proves to be a long lasting thing, crypto has now been around for more than 10 years. There's always those exponential, crazy, high, volatile, parabolic growth spurts. It's just what happens. So I tell people, right, you have to really get the full perspective, and I mean world perspective, to understand, I feel like, where we are in the timeline of blockchain and cryptocurrency altogether is still super early. The fact that you have governmental entities, SEC, CFTC, still, more or less trying to figure out, okay, how are we going to navigate and regulate this space, and still dealing with all of the scams that are out there and everything else, right? This is still fairly new. The average person, they may know the word blockchain or cryptocurrency, but they don't actually use it. Not to the entirety of what, a super crypto or blockchain enthusiast will. So for the average person, this is still brand new. They don't really know it, or they don't really use it. So I feel like it's still very early on, and it's not within reason to have enough time to be able to go in and educate yourself and getting familiar with this, for whatever reason you have that fits you. And, you don't have to feel like you missed the boat, because I can tell you right now, you definitely did not. Not at all.
That's what I was thinking too. People are throwing all these numbers, and I just kind of assume, okay, well, that's it, right?
Yeah, and it's like, right, and it's funny, right, because a few years ago, it is. I'm telling you, it's like hearing a broken record. When Bitcoin it hit 10,000. Oh man, it's too late. All right, well I missed it. Oh, Bitcoin hit 20,000. Oh man, I should have got in. Well, now it's too late. Oh man, I should have never did it. Now Bitcoin hit 40,000. Oh man.
Yeah.
Now it's too late. And I'm just like, look, you will always say that. Like, will always be the case. You really have to understand how new this still is, right? Because
Yeah.
40,000 is too late until we hit 500,000. And then you're like, oh, okay. Maybe it wasn't too late then. Like, nah, like we still got a long way to go, the whole world. So it's not too late. Or at least, let me say this. I'm not going to say it's never too late, but right now, definitely not too late. Super early.
Yeah. There's a distinction between the two.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, if the cryptocurrency party starts at like 10 p.m., this is definitely like 7:30 p.m. right now. So you're still early.
I like that, Lyndon. That's a good way to put it. I'm just curious as well, kind of, I guess, what's the long-term plan with this? I mean, when crypto comes out and it's, I guess it quote, full maturity, what's the financial system going to look like? How will things be different?
That's a great question. And you know what? The answer to that question is what I love the most. And it is, I have absolutely no idea. And that's the beautiful thing, because I really feel like we are stepping into uncharted territory in a way that has never been seen in history. And I could tell you and speculate 101 times on what I think would happen, but at the end of the day, there's so many things that contribute to and affect this sector and market. It's literally anyone's guess. The only thing I will say is I truly believe whatever the outcome is, it will be a positive one. It will be something that transforms the way our monetary system works and the technology behind it works in a much more efficient and positive way. Because again, we've been using the same flawed, in my personal opinion, monetary system for a really long time now. And again, flawed in a lot of different ways. So I feel like there is a natural evolution of money that needs to occur, that should have been occurred. And I feel like this is just that. And again, just like with anything new, right? It's going to take a while for people to warm up to it and for it to really start to make sense, especially with it being so technology heavy, which I think makes it even, warrants more time for these things to take place and people to warm up to it. But I think that's the part that makes it so beautiful, because with that comes a complete an amazing opportunity for a large number of people otherwise to get involved and get educated in a certain way before things really take off. So, I mean, I feel like we're going to have whole new job industries there are whole new job industries that have already been created because of blockchain technology and cryptocurrency. So I don't think that's going to stop. And we're going to see this development that I feel like at the end of the day, most people, for the most part, at least the details, there's no way you would have known what was going to happen. So I'm here for it, man.
We're here for the ride, man. That's it.
Facts. Definitely.
Sure. Now, I'm just curious as well. Another word you used earlier was you mentioned the word sovereignty.
Mm-hmm.
What does sovereignty mean to you, and why is it important in this crypto context?
Yeah. So for me, sovereignty, right, is for me, and again, to keep it simple, is not having to necessarily rely on a third party, right? You're being able to manifest and do certain things without necessarily having to directly entrust in another person or something like that, right? And I feel like cryptocurrency creates that sovereignty in a money aspect, right? Because now we rely on banks, we rely on, the Federal Reserve. If they're not in the picture, that's pretty much it. That they're not, there's nothing we can do. Our hands are tied. At that point, we don't have money. So I feel like cryptocurrency brings a sovereignty to that money space that I honestly feel like it was extremely lacking since its inception, pretty much. And I feel like that is something that people are so unfamiliar with and also uncomfortable with. But I feel like that's great, because I feel like that brings, again, that's like that fresh new perspective. It's the fresh new person in the room that's questioning all the stuff that's been happening, talking to the subject matter expert. It's like, wait, why? So why are you doing this and this? And what is this? And how does this make sense? So that's what it is. And essentially it has people questioning everything and being like, okay, so like, and 9 times out of 10, you find a lot of extremes. You find the people that absolutely hate it, doesn't make sense. Why don't we just keep using the dollar? And then you have those people that are just like, forget the dollar, burn it, cryptocurrency, everything. So, it's definitely interesting. And I feel like that'll spread out a lot more, and you'll see a lot more people in the middle as time goes on. And I feel like that is also another thing that could be a really good sign of, okay, where we see the growth going and just more people who get comfortable with it. So, yeah.
Yeah. I guess like anything else, it's like we're stepping into a new digital era with that sort of sovereignty, like you mentioned.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's unique, man. Yeah, never has anybody seen sovereignty when it comes to money, almost, or at least not within known generations going back. Nobody can firsthand account like, oh yeah, I know what it feels like to have sovereign money. Like, no, nobody does. Everybody's used to this system that we have. So this completely creates a whole new aspect of money that we haven't ever, or anybody we know hasn't touched. So that's sovereignty. Amazing, an amazing thing when applied and used correctly.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm just curious as well. You may have answered that before, but what's the biggest misconception about crypto?
Ooh, that's a great quote. So many of them. The biggest misconception I think would be um that everything is you can't access transactions, right? You can't see what's going on. And it's funny because I don't know how that started or where that came from, because when the basic part of blockchain is that you realize everything is public. But that was still is, a really big thing that people just think like, oh, if it's done on a blockchain, and how are you going to find it? Nobody can see it. And I'm just like, no. On the contrary, it is the exact opposite. If you do a transaction with Bitcoin, essentially everyone can see it. They may not necessarily know what they're looking at, right? If they're not specifically looking for your transaction, but trust and believe me, it is absolutely out there for the world to see. If they, if they receive that transaction, they can take that publicly, put it into a particular website, and it will show that transaction there. And essentially anybody else with that same public key can go and look up that transaction too. So, and that's the thing that I think that makes it, that's the trustless factor, right? If everybody can see what you're doing, you're probably going to be a lot less likely to do anything crazy. So, at least when it comes to money, because you don't, it's all fun and games until yours gets taken. So that's one of those things. But aside from that, actually, and another good one that I'll say, that it can't be hacked. And I think people, when they hear the hacking of crypto, they get it. They feel like, oh, it gets hacked all the time, right? But there's a difference, right? There's a difference in basically a cryptocurrency user being hacked versus a blockchain being hacked. So understanding, encryption and say, Bitcoin, right? 256-bit encryption. I I don't remember the number. I wrote an article on this actually. The number, the one in whatever crazy number that is of chances you have of hacking a single point in the blockchain is absolutely ridiculous and crazy. I mean, even using supercomputers, it's crazy. It would take an extremely long amount of time, right? So generally, when we see all of these hackings that take place, it's not the blockchain that's being hacked. It's the actual individual users, right? So if your email is getting hacked, if your computer is getting hacked, if your cell phone is getting hacked, right? And you have all of this information sitting there, once a person gets your private key, which is that key no one else in the world should know or have except you, at that point, that wallet is completely compromised. That person can do anything they want with it. So people just have to be smart with the way they store and secure their data. And a lot of that stuff, wouldn't happen that way. And then obviously just, being aware of the scams that take place and not participating in the BitConnects of the world and stuff like that. So
Yeah, absolutely. I know that's a big concern for people is, it being compromised and kind of that security aspect too.
yep, definitely. Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong, right? Again, that's the fun part of the technological side. There are people who have thought about encryption methods already that can withstand quantum computing. So this is how far into the future people are thinking when it comes to the technology, and you already have quantum resistant protocols that can be put in place in order to help protect against quantum computers. So it's just like, I don't think that part of the security part is that much of a problem with me. I don't worry about that. It's just more of the becoming more secure in holding my own data and not using the same password for everything I go on. So that if they hack one thing, they now can hack everything. It's just like people have to be smart. And then, people have been so used to convenience that it didn't seem like as much of a big deal. And I feel like because we've had such a rapid transition from little technology to everything being technological and requiring passwords and fingerprints, that securing part and being safe with the data wasn't a thing that was really taught or taught to be serious. So now that we're in that space, it's like, okay, yeah, everything's getting hacked. Everybody's getting hacked. I mean, it doesn't matter whether we're talking about Experian or we're talking about an individual user that's sitting at home. Nobody's immune to it.
Yeah.
So you can be hacked. So yeah, protect your data.
That's right. That's right. Protect your data, folks.
Sure, got
Um,
to.
yeah, no, it's interesting because we're kind of, like we talked about, we're kind of in that transition period where, if you're looking at the large span of human history, this sort of digitized currency, the technology, what we have now, the smartphones, it's very, very new and we're not used to it.
Yep, facts. That is true. I mean, it's just like, I mean, anything else, again, right? With anything new comes this level of vulnerability that certain people unfortunately just want to exploit. So it's up to you as the end user to educate yourself to try to secure yourself as much as possible, right? You want to put on that digital armor and make sure somebody's not breaking in and stealing your stuff, because like I said, at the end of the day, nobody's going to want to guard your money more or better than you do. So, don't be lazy, because I guarantee you will be lazy up until the point to where something happens, right? That person that believes, oh, my identity would never get hacked. Oh, my bank account would never get hacked. Like, yeah, it never does until it is. And then at that point, you're just like, oh, what's, you know what? Funny thing, right? So I am a 2FA freak. So second factor authentication, right? That's the app, whether it's Authy or the Google Authenticator, that puts the 6-digit code in your phone to keep circulating, to basically act as a mechanism to also provide another layer of security, which is honestly very effective. I have 2FA on everything. Literally everything. If I could put it on my kids, I put it on them too. But I have it on everything. One thing, the only thing I forgot to put it on, my freaking Amazon account gets hacked. Let me tell you, I don't know who hacked it, but I thank God that in however they did it, they didn't do it quick enough, or they didn't know what they were doing, because I was able to go back in and delete all my information enough to where they couldn't purchase anything crazy. They couldn't just take off my information, to steal my information, because the way Amazon is set up. And I was able to basically regain access to that. It took about a week. So in the beginning, I literally went in and I froze every credit card and debit card I had. I was like, freeze, went in and froze everything. But I'm like, and I was just sitting there, I was just like, I have 2FA on everything. How did I forget Amazon? It's literally the thing I use the most. I buy everything on there. I use Prime Video. I have music on there, like everything. So I was just like, oh my God. But I mean, again, it's the importance, right? Any small level of vulnerability, you have to be aware of, because somebody very possibly will come and exploit that. So just understand the seriousness of it.
Yeah, it definitely is serious, especially when you're talking about your personal data and it potentially being compromised, right?
Yep, for sure. Yeah, it is not when I saw that email to say, hey, your email's been changed, I was like, what? I was like, and as many times I'll change my own password just to circle it, and just to keep the extra layer of protection. And to see that email come through, and then to finally hit that link to where, like, this isn't me, like, this isn't me, like, I need to fix this, it completely sunk my heart. I was like, oh my gosh. So yeah, no, it's definitely an eye opener once it happens to you. And obviously, it's a thing that I wouldn't want my worst enemy to feel and to go through, because I mean, believe me, it sucks. It's almost like, it really feels like somebody has literally just walked into your bedroom. It was just like, hey, can I take all your stuff? Like, whoa, what? Like, what are you doing in here? So that's what it feels like, just digitally. So yeah, protect yourself out here. Seriously.
Yeah, that's a great comparison. It is important to protect yourself and your data.
Yep.
So I guess more on a personal level, what are you looking for right now? What are you looking forward to, aside from crypto and all these things you have going on? What is Lyndon Morgan looking forward to in this new year?
I appreciate it, man. Yeah. So for me, I'm honestly looking to see. Well, let me say this. So one, just on the outlook of everything, I'm looking to just see how this whole year goes. I feel like a lot of people felt like 2020 was absolute crazy. And don't get me wrong, it was absolutely crazy. There's a lot of crazy stuff that happened, COVID, a lot of different things, presidential election year, obviously, a whole bunch of things going on, right? A lot of crazy stuff that happened all over the world, whether we're talking weather, politics, whatever the case, right? So a lot of nutsy stuff going on. But for me personally, 2020 was one of the best years of my life. It was it created an environment that completely and utterly fits my personality, which is a sit still and binge on whatever it is you love. So it's like, before I would do it, voluntarily. Now it's like, okay, I kind of don't have a choice, because I can't go anywhere, because everybody wants you to stay locked up in the house. So I'm just like, all right, cool. Let me just research forever. And that's exactly what I did. So it opened my mind up to a lot of new things and a lot of new people that otherwise I hadn't experienced before. So that was awesome. So I'm looking to see kind of what 2021 feels like and how people navigate the year. I honestly feel like it's going to be a 2020 part two. I mean, it's already started off interesting, and we're still in January, man. Like it's literally just about to be the end of the first month. So I mean, I feel like there's a long year in head, but I think if everybody tries to find a light and make the opportunity to grow while going through what may seem like chaotic times, everybody will be okay. But personally, so me, one, I'm studying for my Series 65, which is absolutely crazy. That test is, bro, the book is like this thick, like no lies, this thick, and it's like not like, oh, it's the big blocky text like a children's book. Like the text is like, yeah, like 10 point font, absolutely insane. And just so anybody, so your Series 65, it gives you the ability to be able to sell securities, all types of securities. So it's just something that I wanted to do, right? Because one, being involved in the cryptocurrency space, understanding the level of regulation that is probably going to come into play. I mean, we're seeing now, right, with XRP having problems with the SEC and the CFTC, and them trying to deem what's security and what's not, and all that stuff. I'm like, you know what? If I just get a Series 65, I'll nip that in the bud. Not to mention with they had some new laws that came out last year, or a new law that came out last year about, when you have certain certifications, right, it aids in helping you become an accredited investor a lot quicker than just, the 200,000 a year, for the last 2 years, or $1 million, not liquid, but $1 million in net worth. So definitely focus on that. So studying a lot for that. Also, real estate is my first love. That's the thing I always had. So I love doing real estate. Man, seeing what the market looks like now, with everything that's happening on a political front, as well as the economic front, and what the Federal Reserve has been doing, and oh man, it's absolutely insane. And I mean insane in a way of it's interesting to watch. I feel like I'm watching a reality show. Except it's like real life. So just seeing how that's been affecting the market has been crazy. Me, I like to focus on multifamily. That's my love. So, syndications and buying apartment complexes and stuff like that. So definitely focused on that, as well as I've been actually doing a whole lot of trading myself. Honestly, excuse me, trading a lot less cryptocurrency at the moment. And I have been focused more on futures, Forex, and options. Options is something that has become new to me, right? I've heard about options for the longest time. I never really traded them a lot. I had a little exposure. Now I'm like fully immersed, and I'm like, bro, why didn't I do this a long time ago? Like I love it. I absolutely love it. So it's pretty interesting for sure, trading options. So trading, man, just again getting more deeply ingrained and involved in all of those things. Also, trying to find a new place to live. Again, I feel like there's a lot of economic advantages taking place right now. I feel like we are literally witnessing one of the greatest wealth transfers in history. So I'm just trying to, I feel like, keep up with that and feel like, okay, what places in the world make the most sense for me to take advantage of that? And I think one of my first stops is definitely probably going to be Puerto Rico. So, yeah.
Yeah. So what is it about Puerto Rico that's calling you over there?
Puerto Rico for me, I mean, honestly, other than it being just a beautiful place, and again, that me saying that not based on me ever being there because I haven't been there physically yet, but I mean, I've known a lot of people that have traveled there personally, as well as obviously seen a lot of pictures, and I'm pretty safe to say that it's a beautiful place. I mean, tropical right now. Of course, you have your storms just like anywhere else. It's unfortunate, the things that took place not too long ago with the hurricanes and really wiped a lot of stuff out. And I think that was a big factor in a lot of the laws that they basically created and in place, which basically makes Puerto Rico almost a heaven in a sense for a day trader or a hedge fund, because they have certain tax laws that are in favor of those people. And again, it's not just that they have a lot of other industries that basically could benefit from capital gains, the lack of capital gains taxes and things like that are there. So for me, right, I'm thinking like, okay, coming into all this opportunity, where can I go to take advantage of when I'm really in the more beginning stages of building wealth and being able to utilize that much as much money of that as possible to push into other endeavors so that that's, not much of a thing, right? Because the beginning of creating that wealth, that generational wealth, is probably the hardest part. So I want to be able to, take as much of that as possible to put towards that rather than having to, take this extremely large chunk and pay it to Uncle Sam. And like I said, at the end of the day, believe me, I'm not scared to pay taxes. You know what I'm saying? It is what it is at the moment, I didn't make the laws on it, and I don't want to go to jail for not doing it. So at the end of the day, I'll do what I have to do. But again, once you do research, right, you don't know what you don't know. Once you start researching and you understand, okay, what are ways that make sense to where I could, take advantage of what other areas, other countries may have to offer that aren't necessarily the case here, So yeah, that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, it's absolutely it's huge that you're able to think outside the box like that and incorporate new strategies and new locations too.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I gotta do what I gotta do. I'm always comfortable being uncomfortable as long as it makes sense.
Yes, sir. That's beautiful. I love to hear that. Well, Lyndon, is there anything that you haven't said thus far that you'd really just like to hammer home?
Um, honestly, what it is just that I want to encourage people, right? You don't have to be the smartest person in the world. You don't have to be the most technical person in the world. I would say definitely make it a priority to pay attention to what's happening now. I don't care what political party you are a part of. I don't care what background, race, ethnicity, none of that matters, right? Because at the end of the day, the one thing I do know is that everybody plays the money game. Everybody is a part of this ecosystem that was created before us. It will probably be here after us, or at least in the short term. So, make it a point to understand where you are in time, so that you can make the best decisions for yourself and the people around you that you really love and that really love you. Because the last thing you want to be is caught with your pants down in any situation. It never feels good. So I would say just take the time to educate yourself and don't feel like, oh, because it's too late or I didn't learn about it then. The only time it's too late is when you tell yourself it's too late and you choose not to do it. Other than that, it's never too late, because if it's still going to be around, then it's never too late. So just take the initiative in learning. I'm telling you, it's a lot of this stuff is completely life changing, and it will definitely change the way you move through your everyday life once you really see the full picture and what's going on. So I just encourage people to just open their minds up to it.
Absolutely. I'm just curious as well. What do you kind of feed your mind with? I mean, what are you reading? Any sort of financial news on a daily basis, or?
Yeah. Okay. So it's funny you say that. So um I'm trying to I'm trying to drill it down without saying everything, because that's really what I want to say. But it's like it's almost kind of like I've created a strategy in my own mind, right? Because honestly, all information serves a purpose one way or another. Because right, think about back in the day when you were in high school and they had you do dot charts, scattered dot charts, right? Scatter plot. And what it does, all it does is that you plot all of this information, and then once you do that, you can see the trend and you can see where you're going in one direction, one way or another, right? So that's what I like to do with all news. And the reason why too is because it really helps you to better discern what's real and what's not, what applies to you and what doesn't, right? And there's something out there for everybody, every mindset, every opinion, right? But at the end of the day, right, if you only know your opinion and you don't look into other ones, you could be missing a really big part of the picture, right? So the thing I love to research is an opinion that's different from mine. Because if I have something that's questioning my reality, if it changes it, great, because that means I probably am applying something I didn't learn before. If it doesn't, that kind of helps to validate it, right? And again, it really does take a sound mind, right? Because you don't want to gain an ego on the knowledge you have to where you won't be open into potentially changing your mind or learning something new. But if you keep yourself grounded you will always either validate or invalidate what you already know. So yeah, I just try to keep that in mind and just research everything. So all right, to answer your question in a better fashion. So definitely to where I don't really pay attention to the mainstream media news as much, because I feel like it's not as realistic as the information I look for. It is very great to look at just to get more of an idea of, okay, what do they want you to think? Where do they want your mind to really be at, right? And then I use YouTube. It can be a very great source if you know where to go. When we're talking about cryptocurrency, like I love like Chico Crypto, for example. He's on YouTube. Ridiculously amazing when you're talking about researching and analyzing projects and stuff like that. I mean, awesome information. So YouTube is a great source. Parlor, when it's up and running again, also a great source. You know, a lot of the traditional platforms, Twitter can be a really great source again, right? You have to know who you're following to discern your information. Podcast, great. Really great podcast. A lot of great podcasts out there. So another good way to get information. But again, I try to soak in as much information as possible. And honestly, anybody that's interested, right? Because I know there's a lot of different news sources out there, and I have a bunch of them that I get information from. One that is a really great place to go, specifically for crypto, is called the Crypto Curator. What he does is that he goes through, researches, pull all the news from all these different sources that are really important across all these different industries or sectors in crypto, and he compiles it all together. And to speak to that, any type of news curation is great, right? So you won't have to go individually search for on each of these sites yourself. Find a trusted and somebody that you believe really does a good information to pulling that information together for you, and then just feed off that. Because then, you know, that saves you so much time. Believe me, in the beginning, I used to research all of this stuff myself. No, we're not doing that anymore. We're getting curated information. Only, you know, I want to get all the information that I would take me hours to do in about 5 minutes, because, you know, you have somebody that really loves it and does the work for you. So.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like it's just a matter of you getting those puzzle pieces and putting it together.
Yeah, for sure. And I again, you know, appreciating you letting me come on here and chat, man. Anybody, believe me, I'm an open book. I love helping people, especially people who want to really educate and get to, you know an industry, a new industry to them better. So, and I'm an open book. I have absolutely no problem sharing any of my resources because they're not mine. So, you know, anybody that is looking for any of those resources specifically, or you want like, hey, what YouTube channel are you watching? Come find me, you know, at one crypto bully, on Instagram, on Twitter. Find me, DM me. I'll send you whatever you want.
Yes, sir. Sounds good. Well, Lyndon, you know, it's been a pleasure. I've been looking forward to this for a while, and I'm glad we could get together and, you know, learned a lot about you, about crypto, and it was a heck of a show, man. Thank you so much.
Oh, yeah. No, I appreciate it, Aaron, man. It's always the delight when we chat, man. So I've been looking forward to this for a long time. Took me a while because I was out traveling and running around, but I appreciate your patience, man. And you already know I love to come on here and chat whenever. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll have to talk later in 2021 and you know, see what's going on.
Oh, I'm all for it.
We'll talk some more crypto then.
All right, let's do it, man.
Yes, sir. Thanks a lot, Lyndon. Talk to you soon.
All right, I appreciate it. Take it easy.